Hey everyone, it's Wolfgang. I want to talk about some good news with layoffs. It might sound surprising that there would be good news with layoffs, but there is. Wait to the end, I'm going to cover that. A little history first, how we got here. In March of 2022, the Fed began to increase interest rates in the US. The reason the Fed does that is because too much buying of goods and services is occurring in the economy. Businesses and people are buying too much stuff. And when there is an imbalance between demand and supply, there was a lot of demand, and supply sometimes has a hard time keeping up, and prices can rise. We saw what happened with that. It affected everyone. It hurt a lot of people. Inflation. There was tons of demand for goods and services. The supply of goods and services could not keep up. Prices started going up. There were supply chain issues too, but in general, having an imbalance in supply and demand is not a good thing. So the Fed started increasing interest rates, and here's why that works. When interest rates are higher, taking out a loan to buy a car becomes more expensive. Taking out a loan to buy a home becomes more expensive. For businesses, taking out a loan to start a project becomes more expensive. So the Fed increases interest rates to reduce the amount of buying of goods and services that's happening in the economy. So that's sort of like the medicine. The medicine for too much buying, for an overheated economy, that's kind of what they call it when there's just too much buying of goods and services. They call it an overheated economy. When that's occurring, the Fed uses the medicine of higher interest rates to make it more expensive to buy stuff. And the problem is, as with any other medicine, there's a side effect. The side effect is people start getting fired. And here's the reason. When people stop buying as much stuff, when companies stop buying as much stuff, there's less money in the economy. Demand is reduced. And when demand is reduced, businesses sell less. When businesses sell less, they don't need the same number of employees, and they start firing people. They start laying people off. That's what's been happening over the past 2 years. We all know someone who has lost a job. There have been a lot of people who have lost jobs. And there's a good story to tell about this, so wait till the end and I will get to that. But just some numbers first. Some select months of layoffs. In 2023, November, 1,546,000 people were fired. In August, a little bit less than a year later, in 2024, 1,668,000 people got fired. Notice this number is an increase over that. The trend is not good. In 2024, the number of firings of people in the U.S. was increasing. It was going up. Not good. In September of 2024, an even bigger jump, right? 1,802,000 people got fired. So when the Fed starts seeing numbers like that, then they have to turn off the medicine. They have to take a step back and start reversing. So what they did in September of 2024, they lowered interest rates. A couple months later, the layoffs, the firings were at 1,765,000. That's a drop. So layoffs, the rate of people getting fired started to drop, started to decline. So it's a good sign. The Fed lowered interest rates by a lot, by 50 basis points. 50 basis points is 0.5%. 100 basis points is just 1%. That's just the economic description of interest rates. 50 basis points is 0.5% of interest. And the Fed chose to lower rates. They've been increasing interest rates throughout 2022 and 2023. They started lowering interest rates because of the job situation. At some point, they have to acknowledge that the medicine has worked. It's time to get people buying stuff again in the economy. And so they start lowering interest rates. This was a huge drop in interest rates. 50 basis points is quite a drop. So a lot of people say that means the Fed recognized that they had kept interest rates high for too long. And that could be a good point, actually. Having to lower interest rates that much, that quickly, sends a signal that we may have waited too long. Maybe the economy is in worse shape than we think. And it was. If you think about it, the economy over those 2 years was, not for the very wealthy, obviously, but for a lot of working people, the economy was awful. The inflation was also bad. People were afraid about losing jobs, and things were not good. States with the fewest number of layoffs, Florida, Alabama, and Tennessee. This is based on federal numbers. States with the highest number of firings, Washington State and California. So California had the largest number of firings of people in the entire country. And there are a lot of different reasons why that was the case. And we all know what those reasons are. But Florida did well with layoffs, not too many, kind of like the lowest in the country, because so many people relocated to Florida. We've all heard that a lot of people were moving to Florida, again, for a lot of different reasons. So in 2023, during the time the Fed was still increasing interest rates and making loans more expensive and harder to get, home sales were the lowest in 28 years. In the next year, home sales dropped even more. Home sales were the lowest in 30 years. So from 1994 through last year, home sales had not been at that low. So the Fed had to lower interest rates to re-stimulate the economy. Auto sales were the lowest last year since 2011. So the Fed saw these numbers and they knew they had to let people start buying stuff again by making loans a little more affordable, a little less expensive to get. So the good news is interest rates are dropping now. The Fed has lowered interest rates twice after that 50 basis point drop. So interest rates have been lowered by 1%. That's quite a bit, quite a big change. When the interest rates are reduced, people and businesses start spending again. You know, after 2 years of sort of like hell in the economy, basically for a lot of people, people and businesses are starting to spend again. Although it's just starting to kick in because September of 2024, just a few months ago. So not a lot has changed, but there have been some good signs. And this is the good news about layoffs. If you've been concerned about losing your job, the time has come that may not happen, that the job losses are starting to drop off, that companies are going to need to retain people. Auto sales have increased 2%. Not a lot, but that's a better trend than before, when auto sales were the lowest since 2011. Home sales are also increasing as interest rates drop. They're still kind of high for buying a home, but home sales have been increasing, and hiring is recovering. Companies are starting to recognize, number one, the economy is on the upswing, and number two, it's easier to retain people than to let people go and have to rehire them. And here's why. Companies know that when the Fed begins to lower interest rates, the economy recovers. And so companies, knowing that, they have to make plans. All companies make plans. They make quarterly plans for 3 months. They make annual plans. Companies have to plan. When companies notice that the economy is being stimulated, is reviving, they're much less likely to fire people. So that's kind of the good news. We are now in an upswing for the economy because the Fed is in this lowering interest rates pattern now. So the thing about the interest rate changes, they take some time to bite. So you have to be patient. You have to sort of just assume that because, you know, historically, if you go back in time and you study this, you will find that when the Fed begins to lower interest rates, begins making loans cheaper, and people start buying cars and homes, the economy starts to improve. So there's a reason for that. When someone buys a home, they not only buy the home, they typically buy furniture, new flooring, lots of stuff for their home, appliances, all kinds of stuff gets bought when people buy a home. So with home sales increasing, it will affect a lot of other parts of the economy. So just hang in there and be patient, because the good news about layoffs is they peaked last year and they're starting to drop. So if you have any questions about this, if you want to know where we got the data, just leave a comment in the email. Leave a question in the comments. And if you have any other questions, just let me know and I'll try to get to them. And I want to thank everyone for watching, and have a great day.